And we're back with a huge update. Not really, and I honestly have no clue where this is going to be interjected, but something I do want to document and hopefully we'll remember to insert in some part of the RAM revival. We've taken a look at our air-fuel ratio gauge, right? And we've got the harness for it sitting here. And the issue that we had that I was going to be trying to work on was how do we get the wires from roughly where we'll have them. I don't exactly know where we're going to place the sensor. But how are we going to get them essentially from underneath the truck to inside the truck? And there's a couple options. You can do floor pan, trans tunnel. You can try to find something factory to go through. You can make your own provisions, if you will. And my thoughts are, let's try to see what the factory has available. Can we join it with any other bundle of wires? Where it's available is not going to be burned up and can be hung out and secured out of the way. And ultimately, what I found back in here, if you take a look again, this is the harness, and if you kind of see that black tracing over here above, kind of along our brake lines, it's headed to the firewall, and then it disappears inside that black thing, right? So there is a giant grommet to the side. It's very, very dusty, but coming master cylinder there, we're going to keep trekking out towards the fender. That's where the factory wiring goes in, and that thing is there. I don't know if it was something for diesel models. I don't know if it's like a block heater. I don't know what, if any, factory wiring comes through there, but I know on my truck, it's just a really nice open piece of real estate. So, coming around over into the cab, poor truck is very dusty. We have the other end right there. And it worked out beautifully. So right there you can kind of see that's literally where we came in. Now in here it's much cleaner and easier to understand. So this loom of wires right here and then the multicolor stuff all goes into that plug on the firewall. Sitting right beside it is this little guy. And again, I'm assuming, I mean, you wouldn't have that cutout if it wasn't there for something. I'm trying to think, I don't know, maybe that would be there for sticks. Maybe it's like trailer. I don't really know. But if you note where the wire is, that's the center of the grommet. But right below there, that black peg coming through and then the black peg towards the top, that whole thing is soft on the outside. So what I did is I simply scored from the inside, pushed through, and then in what I consider to be a stroke of genius for best ever use, or closest literal use of needle nose pliers, I grabbed on to this white connector side, and of course we're on the engine bay side, right? Grabbed onto that, squeezed them down, and just jabbed on through. And then to extract it and pull it into the cab, I used another pair of needle nose. So quite literally about as close as you can get to needle nose pliers. So I thought that was pretty clever. It worked out really good for us. I've got roughly what we need. Again, if you're going to mount this up on the A-pillar, right, by all means, make sure that you've got enough slack in here. Since we have a steering column gauge pod that kind of sucks, but I will probably modify it and utilize it. That's what we're going to do. I've got a little bit of slack. I'll probably pull some more. I'm hoping, again, I don't exactly know where we're going to put the O2 sensor bung on the exhaust or if I'm going to do a different exhaust. But I'm hoping that we'll have enough. If not, AEM does sell extension harnesses. We could probably rig something up. But that right there, whatever you're doing, if it was trans temp, maybe you're throwing on an auxiliary gauge there. Any auxiliaries, whatever they may be. If you've got a sensor in the engine bay or under the truck transmission area, if that's available to you, that's a really good option in my opinion. And then of course the perk, we're right there on the firewall to go down and underneath the vehicle. If it's something on the engine itself, we could come in, if you want to say a mechanical oil pressure gauge for some reason, you can literally run it right through there, keep it up on the firewall engine bay side and route it directly to the sensor. And you've kind of got all of the factory provisions to work with in terms of, you know, cable control and restraint and everything along those lines. So that's what we did there. And we got the heater core done. We've got that set up. We've got the dash still sitting back here. You know, I guess this is what I could throw in here, all right? So let me set this up. We've cut out for the double din. We've got all that working for us. And what we have here, I don't know that I've ever bothered to record this. I haven't had a ton of free time. It's one of those deals you get 20 and 30 minutes that you string together a couple times a week. But this one was broken, and I debated making a metal, you know, kind of like what I was doing for the one on the left side. And I thought, you know what, let's try to retain it as long as we can. Once we figure out that bracket, we can replicate it. It's probably best to do all three at the same time, or just even run, you know, a rod or thread, whatever you're doing, side to side and have one solid piece. But I just slapped on some more JB Weld there. Again, no one's really going to see that. And the bottom line, though, is it's actually pretty solid. So that corrected this side. This one over here, we're going to need to hit it with some touch-up paint. But I did make a bracket. I had one small issue with it. I think I'll run back over to the workbench, try to find it, and kind of show you what we're talking about. So there it is in all its glory. This is what we've crafted. And if you're thinking, hey, that looks like just a piece of cut sheet metal, that's basically what it is. So it's a little bit more intricate than that. You can kind of see the bends here. But keeping that intact, you really don't have to do. I just decided to do it for rigidity. It is actually offset a bit, as you can clearly see on the bracket. Where I ran into issues, let me bring you over here. We kind of see. Part of me, you know, when I mic'd everything, it looked like we would need to go with 5/16, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do something like this, where I'd have it threaded and would have, you know, nylon lock nuts on the end, or if it would be slicker to just like do rod, drill it, and put cotter pins in, right? And so I ordered in both, and of course the stuff is dirt cheap. If you're making anything, fabricating anything, rod, threaded rod, typically you're going to get a 3-foot length. If you're dealing with like a supplier type of a situation, you're going to pay way less money than you would at a big box store, and you'll pay way less to get the 3 feet than you would to be like, hey, I need a 2 3/4 inch piece cut. You know, a lot of places will give that to you, a bunch won't. So kind of know what you're going in for, and you know what you're willing to spend. But the bottom line, I made this with the 5/16 threaded rod. One of these, I believe it was this guy right here, may not have been. It's a little rough on that side. But what I ran into is when I put the nuts on the threaded rod, we had an issue with clearance, and was not anticipating that. So this is essentially where it would be here on the end. The yellow stuff, yes, that is actually grease, but that's what we're doing. This is kind of what you make your measurements by, and this still kind of binds and might be an issue. Now I'm not sure if it's going to sit farther back. It's one of those things I'll kind of sort of have to mock it up, throw the glove box back in, see if it does anything. The bottom line, I really don't use the glove box much. It's primarily a deal you keep insurance in it, and maybe with the new stereo, I mean, who knows, maybe we'll actually, I'd probably route everything to the center console. So really don't use the glove box much, but you know, it is nice, like for napkins and stuff. Like I've mentioned, it's rarely the driver that spills things. It's usually the passenger, the girl you're dating at the time. So having a wad of napkins in the glove box is really smart. But the bottom line, you know, it just with the broken tab, you know, it kind of sits a little funky, the glove box. And when you shut it, you know, it's still kind of got that droop to it. So this should remedy that. Whether there's interference opening it or not remains to be seen. If that is the case, I'll probably just reuse this bracket. I'll probably I don't think we'd have to get quarter. I think I could use a 5/16 smooth rod and maybe just crimp like an end cap and pray that there's no issues in clearance. And if there is, we'll probably just run a cotter pin, and it'll look kind of weird, but it should work. So I think this will work. It's one of those things we'll just have to play with it and take it from there. So in all honesty, what I think we will do is get this thing installed, the dash that is, and then throw the glove box in. If that then has to be addressed, modified, or recreated, we'll do it. And at that point in time, whatever I fab up, we'll probably just make 3 of them, or 2 extras if you will. And that way we'll be able to make a video on it if we want to. We'll take pictures, whatever we decide to do. But the bottom line is we'll have it documented. We'll have spares ready to go, because as you know, plastic fails. So simple part. I think I used 18 gauge. And again, I had that little bit beefier of a design, but I wound up having to trim back a lot of the sheet metal. And, still, it's in its rough configuration, but that is what I came up with. You could recreate that again. Get yourself smallest sheet, which again, if you've got, you know, metal supplier, you could probably get a 4x8 sheet for just a little bit more than that tiny one at Home Depot. It gives you a lot more stuff to play with. Never know when you're going to need it. It's, basically, you can bend that over the edge of a table. You can bend it over a vise, whatever you need to do. You're just making 90-degree bends. There is a little funk. You know, that doesn't look totally flush. It's because it's not. There are strengthening ribs on the dash frame. And since I was sliding this up as far as we possibly can, that's what we came up with. So I suppose I should take you to the dash and we'll actually kind of show it to you there. All right, so hopefully... yeah, it wants to push back. We may have to trim it some more. I'm not sure. Maybe the nut is the point of interference, or it could be that tab right there. But like I said, this is kind of offset. You know, this opening, if you look at it where the plastic pin would have been, it's not like the screw was centered. It's offset to the right side, so that's why your bracket's going to look funky. But basically what we did, you can see it slide out all the way, which is extra security, kind of clamping force, if you will. But came in right here and trimmed everything away on this side. Might need to do a little bit more cleanup on it. And again, like I said, once this is thrown back in the truck, we'll probably come in, see what we think of it, see how it shuts, take it from there. But I think we're about to the point. We've roughed in this thing, right? We got the heater core done. It was very important to me. It is far easier to deal with the air-fuel ratio gauge and wiring with the dash out than it would be for me to throw it back in. So essentially, I think we've done everything we would want to do in the truck with the dash out. That could come back to bite me, but truth of the matter is, I'd like to have my tailgate back. I'd like to be able to get back in the bed of the truck and, you know, have easier access to stuff. So I'm thinking next time I've got somebody available, this thing's going to get hung back in. Probably won't record it. It's super awkward. I think what I'm going to do is just truffle along, you know, with the dash and then slide it in onto the seats of the truck. I've still got the Hayco fender covers laid out. And I can rest it there, and then we'll pick it up from that point. That way it's a little bit less awkward. I'll need to go drop the steering column again real quick before I do that. Could I do this by myself? I think I could. I don't think it'd be much of an issue. What concerns me is this. We just put a brand new, you know, dash skin, if you will, around everything. So I don't want to damage it. I prefer not to scuff the paint as least as possible, right? That's sort of where we stand. Need to wire the stereo. I'm thinking everything should be able to be done on the bench. Now there is one thing, and that's if I go with a backup camera or a dash cam. It would be, it's not a huge deal, but it would be nice to route those while the dash is out. True story, I was waiting for like the HD versions to go on sale on Black Friday or Cyber Monday, and they never did. So not even like $10 off. I was pretty bummed out, but that's why I didn't buy one earlier. I thought, man, that's expensive. Surely it's going to come down soon. And just how electronics and stereo stuff is, give it a couple months and it's, you know, like 20, 30, 40% off, right? Not the case. There's not many HD cameras, and the Kenwood one, they must be very proud of it. So that is that. I don't know that I ever really showed this kind of cleaned up. It still looks rough, but I mean, I assure you I can run my fingers across it. It's not as jagged as I think it looked in our last, you know, video clip of this area. That right there is the center rib that we kind of had to address. And I do plan to order myself one of those tiny little saws, so that might actually work better. Again, it could be just this plastic. I typically don't have an issue with the plastic backfilling like that. I don't know if it's just because this was a bad plastic. I don't know if it's certain types of plastics are more prone to doing that. But it did happen on the brand new bezel as well, so who knows, maybe it's an ABS thing. But I have cut a lot of that and hadn't had the problem. Maybe it's the thickness. Who really knows? But bottom line, this is ready to get back in there. It probably will be the next time you see it. There's some things I could do here with the lights, but the thing is, I sort of, before we do our upgrades, want to have the video baseline of like, hey, here's the dash on back in the truck and factory, you know, lighting. Let's change it. So I think that's what I'll do. But without further ado, I think I'm going to go do a tool haul. So either that or try to wedge this thing in the truck by myself. So it's cold. I'm not sure that's a great idea, but anyhow, hopefully this kind of gets you up to speed here again. Maybe the back end of this video, I'll just reconnect everything. I'm not sure how much of that I'll film. I'll probably try to kind of like walk you through the basics of it, but I think that's about where we're at. So this may very well not be the final finished product of that. We shall see. Again, keep in mind, you know, if you get like some SEM trim paint or something, you kind of blend all that in, including the threaded rod and the nuts. But yeah, didn't forget to stick to the tailgate. I'm gonna go, I think, do a tool haul here, so take advantage of this extra time I've got during the week, and I shall see you for a little bit more here in the Ram Revival. On second thought, let's just make this even more random. So I think we introduced this in the eBay buy. It truly was my first ever eBay purchase. I have sunk a lot of time into this stupid thing, and if you saw it, you know, I don't know that the video did it justice, but if you saw it, you can tell there's progress, but it's not quite what I would like it to be for the amount of time I've invested. What I'm thinking, we can clean up, you know, the big areas like this with pretty much no issue at all. It's all these intricate cavities, right? Like in there and in here and in that web. And then the other side is even worse. I was debating picking up like a benchtop blast cabinet. I have a full-size one at work that we bought probably 08, 2010, somewhere in that time frame. It's a red one from Harbor Freight. It constantly fogged, and you couldn't really see what you were doing. It worked really good for maybe like the first 2 days. This is an industrial setting. And then it just kind of didn't. And the guy at the time that was the welder, you know, he was like, oh yeah, I know how to trick these out, you know, and we'll set this up and make it awesome. And we did quite a bit of like, you know, post-user modification type of things to make it better. And needless to say, wasn't that great. So that's why that's actually, I think you can get them for about the same price as one of the benchtop units I was looking at. But irregardless, I was thinking, you know what, that might be what I have to do, because that would be a very quick way to take care of this. Typically when I blast stuff here at the house, I've got like a gun, you know, that I fill from the top, kind of a siphon feed thing, and I go out and I blast it. You lose all your media. It's messy. If anyone drives by, you look like a mad scientist. You know, they probably think I'm running a meth lab or something. But the media does get expensive, and I like to do a good job since it's going to be painted. And as I was sitting there debating what to do, then it's like I said, you know, the benchtop unit that has far, far less surface area, this bracket, which is kind of awkward and large, really, when you get down to it, would fit in the benchtop units, but it would fit very easily in the full-size cabinet. Number one, I don't have a ton of space in here for either of them. Of course, the benchtop, you would need a bench to set it on, which is, again, when the full-size one is roughly the same price, it makes sense to go that route. I'm kind of torn on that, and then 3 or so in the morning, something came to me. It was actually some German video on Instagram, and they were showing their needle scaler. And needle scaler is something I've always wanted to buy, but you know, I haven't really done anything with frame rails in a while, and that's sort of where I was wanting to use it. And it dawned on me, you know, that was like a giant pistol grip. It looked pretty cool, honestly, but I'm sure it's like 5 times what I would be willing to pay for one. But regardless, that made me think back, and I was like, you know what? They make like a little, you know, like the pencil die grinders I'm talking about, right? It's literally like we were holding a pencil and it's got a, you know, stone on the end of it. There are very, very small needle scalers, and I don't know how well they would last. I don't know if they would chew up aluminum or not, but it's something that if it worked, it would be really cool to use on this, because it was something that would then allow me to not just hit the surface here, but to also do the sides. And in that Harbor Freight kit I bought, the cutoff wheels just shatter instantly. But you see that little dot down there? Okay, those are the stick-on sanding discs, and if you go straight down and you run that, it just constantly is peeling off. Like, it doesn't even get dirty, it just spins, and it's like adhesive fail. So this is, like I said, it's to do it good, it's taking a lot of time. Blast cabinet would mitigate that. It's a space issue. You know, it's much easier for me to store a needle scaler than it is a blast cabinet at this point in time. I'm thinking I may go pull the trigger on a needle scaler, and hopefully it ships quick. We'll see what we think of it. But if that doesn't work, the blast cabinet would be a great addition to the shop. It's, again, just where am I going to put it type of a thing is a holdup. So, I mean, right now, I mean, the place is a freaking mess. So I guess, you know, just I got a slot right here for it, you know. Set it up, build a stand or something, and go to town. But that could be a upcoming addition or two to the shop. So stay tuned for that.